Last weekend was the RSPB Big Garden Bird Watch. As well as keeping an eye out for birds in our garden, we deliberately tried to spot different species as we went for a short walk around the village last weekend. We saw, amongst others, 3 robins, 2 red kites, finches, blue tits and a jay. The species we saw most of, though, were sparrows. Over 30 of them on our short walk. And in fact, there are a couple on the bird feeder outside my window right now. As I walked last weekend, I found myself humming the tune to a hymn we used to sing in school assemblies. There are hundreds of sparrows, thousands, millions. They're 2 a penny, far too many there must be. There are hundreds and thousands, millions of sparrows. But God knows everyone, and God knows me. The song is based on some of Jesus' teaching, where he explains to those listening that if God cares for all of those tiny sparrows that really aren't worth very much at all, then how much more does he care for us? That passage isn't one of our readings this week, but it has a similar theme to our passages in many ways. Both of our readings today, from Colossians and John's Gospel, focus on Jesus, and both readings help us to see the world and ourselves through God's eyes. With the lockdowns and restrictions over the past year, for many of us, our worlds have shrunk. We haven't travelled as far, we haven't been out as much, and we haven't seen as many people. Even those who struggled to get out and about before we even heard of COVID-19 haven't been able to have as many visits. So our world, our sphere of contact with others has shrunk quite a bit. Our readings this weekend encourage us to lift our eyes from our own 4 walls and our own company and to see the world from God's perspective. We're reminded that the person of Jesus shows us who God is and how he loves us. We're reminded that we can have peace and hope because of who Jesus is and what he did. We're reminded that God stretches all the way back through eternity and that Jesus was there creating the world alongside his Father. And we're reminded that God stretches forwards into eternity and we will always have a place in that eternity, reconciled to God through Jesus' death, adopted into God's family as his children. That cosmic overview shows us that God is so much bigger than the enormous challenges we're facing at this point in history. Individuals, communities, countries, and indeed the whole world have faced huge problems in the past, and God has always been there, offering light, hope, and peace. God is here now, offering that same light, hope, and peace that many have experienced in the past. And God will continue to be there into the future, forever, offering that same light, hope and peace that we all need. We're told that everything holds together in Jesus. So let's keep our focus on him. Let's keep reminding ourselves that he is the light of the world and no darkness can overcome his light. As well as that cosmic view, we're also reminded of the personal. Through Jesus and all that he did, we have the right to become God's children. Children adopted by God, deliberately, consciously, passionately wanted by the same God who created everything around us and who is eternal. The God who made everything, including those sparrows, and who was and will be for always, wants each one of us as his children. The God of the universe loves you and chose to adopt you. When we get bogged down in the present difficulties and the monotony that many of us are experiencing, it can be easy to forget to lift our eyes and see the bigger picture. The picture that reminds us that we are loved and that somehow God has got this. Sometimes though, if we're not careful, we can forget that applies to others as well. We forget to see others as God's children. We forget to see others as God sees them. The first lockdown saw an amazing sense of solidarity, communities supporting each other, good and beautiful things happening that brought us a bit of joy and hope. COVID has stayed with us much longer than any of us thought it would 11 months ago. And I know many are finding the third lockdown harder than the first. People's patience levels seem to be a lot lower this time, and there seems to be more complaining and criticism. We don't have to agree on everything, and it's okay to challenge things that we believe are wrong, especially injustices that affect others. But when we do disagree, let's try to remember that the person we see as wrong is deeply loved by God. Their identity is as a child of God. It may be that as we do that, as we remember to see those we disagree with as God's children in our interactions with them, that they will extend that same grace to us at some point too. If you see a sparrow this week, either out the window or as part of your daily exercise, remember that even though God is so much bigger than everything that is happening right now, God loves and God cares for you. And that person you're annoyed with, angry at, that you feel quite judgmental about, God loves them and cares for them too. So why don't you say a prayer for them? Because you might find actually it's a lot easier to see them as God's child when you do. Just as God offers us light, hope and peace, let's share those gifts with one another too.